want to talk about why branding and why now. Well, there's a few things. This is an important time for the city of Owatonna. As growth accelerates, we want to really help you all define and own your distinct story. We want to get to what is truly unique and authentic about Owatonna, and figure out the right way to tell the Owatonna story so y'all can reach your preferred future. And as Glenda mentioned, there is a lot of research that goes into this. There's extensive research, both inside and outside the community. And so we truly try to leave no stone uncovered as we try to define that distinct story. We want to reflect the mission statement and comprehensive plan. And so we'll embrace the history, but also set the stage for future vision, which you all are a big part of setting that stage for the future vision. So when we come to Owatonna towards the end of January, I hope that we'd be able to get to speak with several of you in focus groups or one-on-one interviews and figure out what is truly unique and authentic, and what the stage is for that future vision. We want to help professionalize the municipal government, and we want to provide a universal message that helps build confidence, reinforce actions, and support policy. So when everybody is kind of operating from the same voice, whether it's city or chamber or economic development or tourism, we want everybody to kind of have the same voice or the same mouthpiece going forward, so that as people look to bring businesses in, or as people look to travel or seek places of tourism, or as residents are even looking to move to different places, as they search Owatonna, we want people to be able to see and know that that the city really has itself put together well, and that there is a unified brand and a unified voice. And then we also want to positively influence residents, new residents, businesses, investors, and visitors. So this is, with all the research, with the whole process that we go through, a brand done effectively and correctly is truly a tool for reaching your preferred future. And so we do want to help uncover what is distinct, authentic, and ownable. What makes Owatonna any different or stand out from anybody else in the region. Here at North Star, we truly do have the experience to help Owatonna stand alone in the marketplace. You can see we've got experience all over the country, and even several within Minnesota. And I think we'll show a case study or an example of one that we did in Minnesota. But we're based in Jacksonville, Florida, and this is all we do. All we do is help smaller to medium-sized communities figure out their preferred future and figure out the best way to tell that story. And so we've worked with, I think it's now 46 different states and over 250 different communities. And truly, this is all we do. We help places reach their preferred future. And what you'll see here are several logos, but a brand is so much more than a logo. It's the feelings that are invoked when you see some of these things, or it's the messaging that goes out. It's every single touch point that people have with the city, or with the chamber, or with the economic development. So there's a whole lot more to it than just a logo, but the logo and strapline or tagline truly do help tell the story. So these are several examples of places that we've worked on. You may like some logos, you may dislike some logos, but each of these cities or counties is something that's unique and specific to them, and it works for them. So what we create for Owatonna, other cities may not like, but it's something that truly works for you. And we are passionate about smaller municipal branding. And you can see there's Marshall, Minnesota in the top left. That's one that we'll get into a little later. But it's fun to come into different cities and figure out what makes them tick, what makes them any unique or any different from anybody else in the region, and truly how to help them stand out.
So at North Star, we like to say that your brand is what people say about you when you're not around. So what does that mean? That's essentially about your reputation. So Sam mentioned the research that will be starting fairly soon. We want to understand that. We want to know what the reputation is. What do people get right? What did they get wrong? Is it accurate? Is it far reaching? And then branding is what you will do about that. What you will do about that reputation to be sure that what is distinct and ownable is leading the way, and people can understand and appreciate and associate that with your community. But we also like to say that branding has a branding problem. So Sam showed you some logos, and those are very important tools and are part of this process, but your brand is so much more than that. It's how people relate to and feel about the place, how they talk about it. It is connecting with the community and all it has to offer. So it's not just a logo and a line. We don't want to make this about that. Anita and her team will lead you through that with great results. But it's not just a logo and a line. Your brand is far more than that. So I'm going to take you back to school, and can anybody name the 4 P's of marketing? So we've got product and place and price and promotion. And so with place branding or community branding, communities don't have control over much of this, maybe a little bit of promotion, but essentially we've identified in all of our experience the 4 P's of community branding, and it's passion, 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 passion. So we want to engage with and uncover and add to all of those passionate voices that we know that we will hear from. We want folks after this process to become strong advocates and ambassadors. And so we'll be creating the tools and the language for that as you continue to advance and implement with a new brand. We find that if communities, and so it's important, while Sam mentioned that this can professionalize and help city messaging, communities that make this more than just city driven, with all their partners, chambers and economic development and tourism and all aspects of the community, will become far more competitive if they can get at a distinct positioning statement. We call it a DNA statement for the community, what is distinct and ownable for the place. So those communities will be far more competitive as they try to attract interest and investment from a range of audiences. So we love research, so we're looking all over the place for it. So here is some studies, results of some studies of some European cities with relevance for us here in the States as well. Talked about the benefit of increased competitiveness. And so what we're after is always recruiting interest and investment. It's not always financial investment, it's investment of resources and people, and people choosing to live in a place or drawing visitors with events. You want high return on all things that the community does, from infrastructure to those events that attract the visitors. And so it can help with cohesive development as you move forward. We want to be sure that what we're doing with events or activities or messages all honors what makes us special. So that's the benefit of going through the thorough research process to get to that distinction. And then, and having done this for 15 years, I find that working with communities, a process like this, because we do the research, the result is it's almost like folks believe in their community. It's permission to believe in the community, or permission to believe again in what they were drawn to initially, or what they value. So it's a healthy process to go through, particularly for branding, but even has impact beyond that. So I'm going to ask you to read this. This is a strategy that was put together for Sacramento. So I'm going to give you a second to read this, and then I've got a question for you. So what does that tell you? Or what does that tell you about Sacramento? Trying to do a lot of things, be a lot of things to a lot of people. What's surprising, and this was the result, it was well-intentioned. A lot of folks in the community came together. They called it a brand-a-palooza. They wanted to get at a stronger message for Sacramento. And so they wanted to include all of the great things and aspects of the community. But the essence of strategy tends to be sacrifice. And so there's a lot in here, but surprisingly, even though we're not in California, what we know about Sacramento is not even in here. They are the capital of, let's back up one. They are the capital of California, which is the 5th largest economy in the world. So they're setting policy for that economy. They are part of, they're at the top of the Central Valley, which is the largest patch of grade A soil and is just an agricultural power in the world. And they're at the top of that. They have UC Davis nearby, which is a premier research and agricultural educational institution. And they are soon to have the world of food there near downtown. And so let's go ahead and advance. So as we did some research for them, we got to a strategy like this. Now, it was a little bit longer than this, but the essence of that strategy is it's shaping the world's relationship with food. And so the reason I share this is we want to be careful that we don't throw everything at the strategy. We get at what is distinct and ownable. All the great things about the community are not necessarily distinct. So we want to be sure that we drill down and get to that, so we know how to start presenting and articulate that distinction. And so that's why this process of going through research and getting to something as acute as possible that serves all the audiences and all parts of the community is beneficial. So we take that balanced approach to branding here at North Star. We start with the resident engagement and outreach. It's extremely important. We're not going to tell you what your brand is. We're going to uncover it from the folks that know it best. We're going to get the outside perspective and understand what people know or don't know, but that's going to help us uncover that DNA. Our process is been fine-tuned. We have learned some things the hard way, but are always learning and improving things, and we're focused on stakeholder consensus as we go through this process, and then we deliver, once we have that positioning statement, unique, distinct, creative, and activation solutions for what is real and authentic there in Owatonna. So this is my, thanks to Anita and her team, this looks great, my low-tech version. So if you're talking to a friend or a neighbor that couldn't be there this morning, or as we go through this process, this is the North Star process. So if you're at a coffee house or a bar or wherever you are in an office, draw a big X on a piece of paper so it kind of looks like an hourglass. So we're up at the top right now. We're starting that stakeholder education and engagement. We're going to have a few months of research quantitative, qualitative from within the community. As I mentioned, getting the outside perspective. We're going to study the competitive set. And so you see it narrows. And so we're going to narrow all of that research, glean insights from it, and get to what is distinct, so that we cannot follow that early example of the team in Sacramento. We want to get at what is distinct for the community. It's got to be broad enough to include a lot of things, but specific enough to be compelling so that you become competitive. So the bottom half of this hourglass is the process that Anita will lead the team through, and that does include those foundational creative tools like a logo and a line, but you see it broadens out as we move toward the bottom of that hourglass, and that's bringing that strategy to life throughout the community, whether that's economic development and tourism, city administration, schools, parks, all aspects, all audiences, how to make that strategy meaningful and relevant for all of those parts and all of those audiences. So it's not how and where to place a logo, it's how to make that strategy work throughout the community.
All right, thanks, Ed. So I'm going to show you folks some examples of how this process then comes to life, and we'll look at a few quick case studies, and then we'll give you a little more of an in-depth look at a couple as well. So this is Gallatin, Tennessee. As Ed mentioned, the idea of really integrating a brand into the community. So you see here some ways, some entryway signage, things like partner window decals for businesses. And then you can see we take that line, True Grit, Amazing Grace. And you can see that coming through to the different audiences here in some of these ads in this outdoor board. Even with the educational system there, True Grit, Amazing Graduates, congratulations from Gallatin. Tempe, Arizona. So they are most famous for having a really great university there. So that college student experience really impacts this city. And you can see here making waves in the desert. So this idea of innovative thinking and that youthful energy really comes through in the branding. And again, just some examples of how that came to life. Columbus, Indiana, they've got a really great architectural offering that's very unique and pretty surprising to people that don't know. So the line, that idea, that essence sort of manifests itself in the line, unexpected and unforgettable. And then you've got that C. They really did a good job here. Most importantly, I'd like you to look at that center column that has those partner logos. So you can see very clearly that those partners are all working together, but they also are maintaining a unique identity. So the arts district really has that sort of artistic feeling coming through. And that's something that really is identifiable as themselves. But when you see these all together, you understand that these organizations and these folks are working together. So they're sort of a family, even though they have their own unique sense of identity. So I want to take just a deep dive through a couple that show you how the progression happened from that DNA to brand story. So how do we translate that strategy statement that happens at the neck of that hourglass that Ed mentioned into creative development? So first is Marshall, Minnesota. Some of you may be familiar with them, not too far away. Here is their strategic DNA statement. So for those who value seeing their horizon and helping shape it, Marshall, home to Southwest Minnesota State University and homegrown global brands, is the community that cultivates the best in us with an energy and optimism that make a difference for your family. So really that point of difference and key benefit, we keep that in mind throughout the creative process. So our goal is that we develop those foundational creative elements based on communicating this story and their ability to help a community bring that story and that essence to life through their brand. So here's the logo, which Sam showed you earlier. In this case, cultivating the best in us. You can see that some hints of that language was in the DNA statement. That doesn't always happen. That's not always a direct connection. That DNA statement is really intended to be strategic language. It's always nice when we can pull a creative element out of it, which happened here in this case. And then here's how that starts to come together in terms of the community itself. So you can see up there in the upper left, this idea of cultivating opportunities. So from an economic development standpoint, from a workforce standpoint, this creative is built to sort of help tell that story as well. And then you see Visit Marshall there in the center. So again, another execution of a logo for a partner. This one's a little closer in relationship to the primary mark than some of those examples we saw from Columbus. So there's a vast range of ways we can go with partner logos. We can create really close associations, or we can create some real distinction, but keep them in the same family. And so it's a process of really looking at what's best for those organizations and for each individual community. Just some another examples. We like to propose some big ideas. You see that big M over there. They had a downtown corridor that really was underutilized. So we recommended they set up some events there, really put their identity out front and center of that experience. And so that was a big idea for them, but they really loved the thought of having sort of this signature logo piece. So we're really proud of this implementation in their community there in the upper left. This has been recently installed this past summer. They basically built a large metal frame, had local artists help them with a color story to match their logo, and then had community members come out and help build the mosaics that clad this artwork in this park. And it's pretty grand. You can see some people in the background there. So it gives you an idea of the scale of this thing. But what a terrific way to really get the community connected to this brand. One of my favorite stories from this project is over there on the left, in that first part of the M is a train, which is part of their history and heritage. And one of the people that was working on the mosaic actually brought a token that had been used for that train that had been in their family, and they used it as the front piece of that train. So really bringing the community's history into today and really imbuing it in their new identity and getting people excited about it. Also on the screen here, you see some other ways that they implemented the brand in wayfinding and transportation, and business partners, local businesses. Anytime you can give them the opportunity to engage with your brand and really make it their own. You'll see here Brow Brothers created a Cultivate Pale Ale based directly on the brand and ran that signature beer throughout the year as well. And one more, Bakersfield, Kern County, California. I want to share this one with you, particularly because this was a regional effort that's been very successful. So we had a lot of organizations working together. Here you can see Kern County, just there north of Los Angeles, Bakersfield being the largest city in the county. And we worked with them in partnership. So these two groups came together along with other community groups as well, Chamber in Bakersfield, for example. So the challenge out here was, it's a county, there's a lot of diversity of assets. So kind of back to what Ed was talking about with Sacramento, that idea of strategy, sometimes requiring sacrifice and really needing to distill things down. So while they have a really large agricultural area and really important to their economy and the world, really, they also have some really high-tech military type stuff going on, as you can see here. So it was really a unique challenge to figure out a strategy that could bring all of these assets together and be messaged appropriately. So here's Bakersfield's DNA statement. So this was for the city of Bakersfield. You might be familiar with the Bakersfield Sound. They also had a connection to that Central Valley there. So for those appreciate the original sound of an authentic welcome, Bakersfield is where Los Angeles becomes the Central Valley and where you find the heart of California's giving ground. So everyone has a chance to find something better. So Bakersfield was really offering the opportunity to get a good California lifestyle at a more affordable price than some of the other areas in the region, and in a really welcoming community. So that was for the city. For the county, again, we're looking at how do we bring all of those assets together. So for those seeking a place made of the right stuff, Kern County, at the intersection of Los Angeles and the Central Valley, where California is both grounded and boundless, literally and figuratively giving more power to you. So you see that idea of that industrial power, military flights, and that agricultural coming together in this idea of being grounded and boundless, literally and figuratively giving more power to you. So here's a look at the family of logos. You can see here, again, these are all clearly related to one another. They're sharing some common colors. They're sharing some common letter forms, but they also still stand alone and have their own unique identity. So on the left-hand side of the screen there is Kern County. You can see that grounded and boundless idea coming through even in that simple word mark with those, that K and that N reaching up and reaching down. So grounding into the bottom of the logo there. And then Kern EDC below that, California, where business is boundless. So an adjustment of that line. So related but unique. And then to your right in the center there is Bakersfield, the city's logo and line. So in Bakersfield, it's the sound of something better. So again, playing on that musical heritage. And you've got that subtle guitar pick shape holding their logo with, you know, some subtle musical notes, the bars there in the background. And then Visit Bakersfield, again, very closely related because their missions are overlapping. So in this case, it made sense for them to have something quite close. And then the Bakersfield Chamber, you've got a color shift. Again, you've got a shift of that line, so building something better. And then down below was an identity created for a local fund that was funding some business improvements, facade improvements, those sorts of things, but was a partnership of the city, the chamber, and you can see sort of how that relationship comes to light in that identity as well. And here's how some of that came to life in Bakersfield. You also see Kern EDC down there, but things like getting the brand into your physical environment. So with the chamber building or inside the airport, these are really great touch points for a brand, particularly for getting the community engaged, getting visitors engaged, letting them have a sense of arrival and a sense of place and identity when they come to your community. You can see there, they created a beautiful Bakersfield Awards that was sponsored by the chamber. So really personalizing the brand. So these brands aren't sacrosanct. You need to really personalize them to the community and put them to work in real and authentic ways that touch the people there. And in this case, I mentioned that regional collaboration. They've done a great job of getting their organizations together. You can see here, they're in front of that step and repeat that features all of those identities. So Ed mentioned that idea of speaking with the same voice and the same strategic frame. This is really, really a key to success in community branding.
Branding can be somewhat intangible. You know, it's not always exactly measurable for examining your success. Different communities see that branding has had different impacts on their community or on their results. So they're not always saying that branding was the reason for these results and these improvements. The good news through the research process, is that we're creating some benchmarks with this research, and then we can measure against that a year or two after you start implementing, particularly like the Lee Summit there in the top, Lee Summit, Missouri. We ask a very simple question as part of the research: how likely are folks to advocate for Owatonna as a place to live, visit, or conduct business? And so we can understand what that is today, and then in a couple of years measure that again to see what sort of impact your branding efforts have had on that advocacy for the place. But some folks look at web hits, some look at heads and beds, or increased revenue from hotels. There are many ways to examine the success of your efforts.